Adverbs are one of the trickiest parts of speech, and that's because they do so many things in a sentence. If you know about adjectives, adjectives tend to do just a couple of things. So an adjective will modify a noun or a pronoun, mostly just nouns, but sometimes the odd pronoun. And in the same way, an adverb is also a modifier. And by modifier, we mean that the word changes the meaning of something else. So an adverb is also a modifier, but in this case, an adverb can modify just a host of different things. And that's why I tend to think of it as the Swiss Army knife of parts of speech, as you can see from the picture here, because it just does so many things. So let's zoom in and try to list some of the things that it modifies. Most of the time, an adverb is going to modify a verb. All right, so a verb is one of the things it modifies. It can also modify something called a verbal. So a verbal would be something like a present participle or a past participle or even an infinitive. So these are all verbals. All right. Another thing that an adverb can modify is an adjective. So adjectives can be modified. Also, other adverbs. So one adverb can modify another adverb. And a lot of this will become more clear when we look at an actual example in a little bit. And then there's one more thing that an adverb can modify, and that is an entire clause or sentence. So a clause or an entire sentence. And this picture is getting rather confusing now, but the point is that all of these different things that an adverb can do, they all answer a number of different questions. And I've put these on the bottom here. So these are questions like how, when, where, why, and to what degree. Sometimes people think, well, if I just memorize these questions, then when I look at a sentence and I ask them, I can find the adverb. That's definitely a good strategy, but it's not as powerful a strategy, I think, as knowing, as I said, what these adverbs modify and then trying to take the whole sentence apart and then figure out, okay, well, what is going with what? So look at the parts of speech and how they relate to other parts of speech rather than just asking these questions of how, when, where, and why, and so on. Now that we have a rough idea of how adverbs work, let's look at a couple of sentences to see how they function in practice. So our first sentence reads, fortunately, Byron's really old aunt is having surgery very soon. And we have a subject here, which is aunt. Aunt is a noun. And there's a verb phrase that goes with it, so that's is having. And we have surgery, another noun, also the direct object. And then we have a number of modifiers. So old is an adjective. What kind of aunt? An old aunt. So old describes the noun. Byron's is a tricky one. Normally Byron would be a noun, a proper noun. But in this case, the noun is acting like an adjective. So it too is describing aunt, Byron's aunt. The rest of the sentence consists entirely of adverbs. And I'll go through these fairly quickly and show you what they're modifying. So first of all, fortunately, is modifying the whole sentence or the whole clause. It's not going with a specific word, but it's telling you kind of what the mood of this entire clause should be. Then we have really, and this one is modifying old. So how old, if we ask that question, really old. And this adverb is modifying an adjective then. We also have soon, and soon is modifying the verb, even though it's quite a ways removed from it. So if we say, is having surgery when, we can ask this question, when? Then we would say, soon. Now there's also this word very, and what is this modifying? Well, this is modifying soon. So soon to what degree, we might say? What's the degree or the extent of this? Very soon. And you can start to see that these questions are helpful, but the best way to go about it is just to look at the sentence and figure out what is going with what. What's telling you a little bit more about another word or phrase in the sentence. And this one then is an adverb modifying another adverb, and that's another option for adverbs. Let's finish with one more sentence here. Barely played, my copy of Monopoly is worth a fortune. And we're going to look just at the first example here, barely played, the first bit of the sentence, because played is a past participle. So this is a participle, and we know that participles are verbals. So as we said before, you can modify verbals also with adverbs, and in this case the adverb is barely. So played to what extent, to what degree, barely played. And now we've seen in practice all the uses of adverbs. You can use it for a whole clause, you can use it for modifying the verb, an adjective, another adverb, and for verbals. Alright, so that's it for adverbs, at least in terms of the introduction. Do notice one final point here. A lot of adverbs end in ly, and sometimes that's what people start with. They'll say, well, just look for the ly endings. But that's not the only clue to an adverb. In fact, you can have adjectives that end in ly as well. So an example would be lonely. Alright, so lonely is typically an adjective. Don't go just by the ending. The ly ending can be helpful, but go by the function in the sentence. And hopefully this video has helped to explain that.